has passed her last times, and the brutal, that means the
Viewers, you're watching the crux of the matter. A few months ago, a known India baiter, an alleged Pak ISI stooge, and a UPA accused terror financier all jumbled into one an unprecedented parliamentary election from Jammu and Kashmir. Engineer Rashid, as Member of Parliament, will now get a lifelong pension, many perks, even though he is incarcerated on trial in Tihar jail. In the valley, Rashid's victory was immediately assessed as an expression of Kashmir's yearning for greater political autonomy that was eroded by the abrogation of Article 370 and Article 35A. Albeit alarmed, the centre still took consolation from the knowledge that voters in record numbers turned up to vote. The BJP cited the turnout as underlining a renewed belief in the Modi-led Indian state's capacity to accommodate the aspirations of the once estranged Kashmiri people. Here are some of those separatists, wannabe Rashids, who are going to be contesting. Umar Hamid Mala, backed by Jamaat, will fight from Zainapura. Sayyar Ahmed Reshi will fight from Kulgam. Nazir Ahmed Bhatt contesting from Devsar. Talat Majid files nomination from Pulwama. Now, 3 months later, as the first assembly polls in a decade are being held in Jammu and Kashmir, as I told you, several more Rashids from separatist ranks have thrown their hat, metaphorical hat, into the ring. Most are now campaigning on the promise to undo the abrogation of Article 370 and 35A, to free political prisoners from jail, renew cross-border trade with Pakistan, and some other demands associated with separatist politics of yore. Of course, anticipating competition from separatist debutants, the mainstream parties like the National Conference and the People's Democratic Party, the PDP, have also come out with their version of, quote, soft separatist, unquote, manifestos. At least that's what's being said about them. The PDP and NC have welcomed the move of other separatists also joining in the fray. PDP Chief Mehbooba Mufti says Jamaat is not contesting polls for the first time. She instead says that the centre should revoke the ban on Jamaat-e-Islami and defreeze Jamaat's accounts. Remember, viewers, the Jamaat has been banned 5 years earlier for terror activities. Omar Abdullah echoes the PDP, says fighting elections for Jamaat is halal now. He added that Jamaat has changed its political ideology. Like Mehbooba, Omar also wants the ban on Jamaat to be lifted. He welcomed their decision of contesting polls as independents. The prospects of many Rashids sitting in the legislature has elicited predictable views. The advocates of a, quote, soft touch, unquote, approach to Kashmir are welcoming the desire among, quote, India's skeptics, unquote, in the valley to move towards the mainstream. This ecosystem is excited by the prospect of what they term is the, quote, broad basing of democracy, unquote, in the Union Territory. Unionists or integrationists see the entry of, quote, separatists, unquote, into the poll fray as an insidious attempt at state capture from within. What if the newly minted legislators pass a resolution in favor of restoring the much more tenuous pre-1953 status for Jammu and Kashmir in the Assembly? What message would such a radical statement of separatism send to the world? What if the legislators use the resolutions to rally their supporters to come out onto the streets? Would the raising of such, quote, ultra-virus, unquote, demands by the people's representatives still be regarded as a win for constitutional democracy? That's perhaps the most moot question today. And let's pose this question. We have with us Sushil Pandit, Kashmiri activist and Ifrat Jahan spokesperson of the National Conference, which is, of course, the most influential party in the valley, viewers. I want to first begin with you, Mr. Pandit. What do you make of this entire group of separatists that have now entered the poll fray? Can this be good for democracy in the long run in Jammu and Kashmir, or is this actually problematic?
Thank you, Rahul, for having me on the show. I have been saying this for years, that democracy in Kashmir has become a Trojan horse for jihad. There are three legs of jihad in Kashmir, and it is evident to anyone who is willing to see. One is, of course, the violent, ruthless, bloody jihad, which carries guns and bombs, kills and maims people, attacks violently establishments and homes, and therefore forces the security forces to engage with them in a fight, in a street fight, violent fight with arms and ammunition. The other leg of jihad is the overground jihad, which is not violent, but provides political support to them, argues for them, rationalizes them, and also becomes a harbor, a facilitator, and not just the political ideologue for that jihad, which is the kind of Hurriyat conference who openly admitted to Hizbul as their askari bazu, or their sword arm. The third and the most pernicious leg of jihad are the so-called mainstream political parties who swear by Indian constitution, who participate in the democracy, but only to get into the system to cushion these two, not have FIRs filed against them, and if the FIRs are filed, not prosecute them. Even if the prosecution begins, delay it and not bring it to any conclusion, and somehow create policies, framework, and an environment to facilitate them, to encourage them, to even compensate them when they are punished or killed in encounters or whatever. And this system, when it takes oath of allegiance of the Indian constitution, when it participates in the democratic processes, gladdens hearts across the country that look at them. They swear their allegiance by the constitution, they hold the flag, they participate in the democracy, and through this they are actually endorsing India. But the sad truth is they get into the system, weaken the system, corrode the system from within, and weaken our will to fight and survive.
So are you saying that we are taking two steps backward? Okay, Irfa Jan, why do you disagree with Sushil Pandit? Why are you or your party sort of open-minded about these separatists from coming in, etc., etc.?
First things first, Rahul. Sushil Pandit said that it's the mainstream political parties like the National Conference that somehow provide the back-end support to these groups. I would like to remind the viewers that there would have been a semblance of truth in this if mainstream parties were like the National Conference were in power. It's been 10 years since National Conference is in the opposition, and it is 10 years since the BJP government remains in power in Jammu and Kashmir and in center. But the way they say it, they would probably make you forget facts, and they would probably make you forget the reality that National Conference has been in opposition for 10 years. So there is no power that National Conference has to bring anyone in. They would, of course, also not tell you that it was the National Conference 8,000 workers who were shot dead by those people who wanted freedom of Jammu and Kashmir from India. And we were shot dead simply because we were called the Indian agent simply for fighting the elections. This is also something that Sushil Pandit will not tell you. He will basically want to ensure that all of us are basically jihadists who should be lynched on the street. That is essentially what he is trying to tell you, without bringing in the fact that we were the ones who were murdered, our houses were burned simply because we fought an election and 8,000 of us were killed. He will, of course, also not tell you that recently when you bring Engineer Rashid, it was Umar Abdullah who lost to Engineer Rashid. They were in direct competition with us, not the BJP. And interestingly, it is not the National Conference that's bringing them in. We are just saying for us, we are not going, if Sakshi Maharaj can fight the election, 39% of BJP's cabinet, Rahul, at this point has criminal cases against them. If your 39% cabinet can have criminal cases because they are innocent until proven guilty, that is a rule that should be applied to everyone else. If Sakshi Maharaj can be an MP, so can Engineer Rashid. But yes, we are also aware that this is not entirely an organic process, and it's also being done because the BJP, for example, the BJP does not allow the separatists or their families to get government jobs.
Okay.
It is the BJP, however, that also allows them to participate in elections.
Okay.
And this is the decision of the BJP that
Okay.
National Conference welcomes. It is
Okay.
done by the BJP, but we support it.
On the criminals in parliament, etc., to sort of conflate them with a slightly different level of malevolence, which is separatism.
Sakshi Maharaj,
where people.
when Sakshi Maharaj commits a crime.
No, one second. It's not just crime.
When she is accused of terrorism, it's a different kind of nationalism.
I know.
When a Muslim is accused of terrorism,
No, it's got nothing to do with
terrorism.
Hindu-Muslim. We are not getting into
then
the
what
Hindu.
is it? Maybe you could explain the
one
difference
second.
between Sakshi Maharaj and somebody
If you
else.
allow me, if you just allow me,
Yeah,
we're not
please.
talking about criminals here. We are talking about
Sakshi
certain.
Maharaj is
Give me.
Let's talk about Sakshi Maharaj, Rahul.
Irfa Jan, one
if
second,
Sakshi
please.
Maharaj can be allowed, why not others? Please tell me if
Yeah,
Sakshi
if you allow
Maharaj
me to,
is a
if you allow me to
accused.
respond to you, I can.
Sure. If a terror accused.
Okay,
like
can you
Sakshi
allow me?
Maharaj, yeah,
Can
just
you
my
allow-
question.
Yeah.
If a terror accused like the Sakshi Maharaj, who's clearly been accused of terrorism by the NIA, can be allowed to fight and become an MP, why not others? This
Okay,
is my
so if you allow me, there is a slight difference here. It might be a difference of just degrees, but the fact is that we are talking about separatists who do not recognize the articles of faith that all of us subscribe to, which are laid down in the Constitution. Now, that really is a fundamental problem. All of them are accused. I'm not saying Engineer Rashid is guilty. Okay, he's undergoing a trial. He may come out, absolutely smelling of roses. But will that change his outlook towards the Indian state? Is he willing to recognize the sovereignty of the Indian state? That's the moot question. That's why when separatists come in, whether they come in Punjab or they come in through, elections in Kashmir, there's an added complication. That's all I'm saying. Anyhow, I just want to quickly bring in Mr. Pandit. Mr. Pandit, all the points that Ms. Jan has raised, how would you respond to her?
Yeah, I mean, I've been responding to this kind of logic which rationalizes and legitimizes so-called mainstream politics in Kashmir, irrespective of their record. Yes, National Conference is not in power for the last 10 years, but when more than 35 years ago, we were expelled from Kashmir violently, it was in power. And it was in power for more than 10 years before we were expelled. Okay. So it harbored jihad. And there is an article by Indrajit Bhadwar in India Today of March 1990 issue where it said more than 85 terrorists caught by army crossing the border, handed over to police because army doesn't prosecute, were let off by Farooq Abdullah administration between July and November 1989, and they let loose a reign of terror.
Okay.
Again, Farooq Abdullah's record, his speeches from Hazrat Bal, where he sympathizes with and supports the stone pelters, where he says to Hurriyat from a public platform that we are not enemies, let's work together. So the point is, yes, it is on record that a lot of National Conference workers were also targeted, innocent workers who in their innocence of mainstream politics actually meaning to hold the tricolor were patriotic, but they were fodder for this entire exercise.
Quick response.
Let me finish. Let me finish. When National Conference is not in power, the Tweedledee of the Tweedledum, which is PDP, is in power, and they are the other side of the same coin.
Fair enough.
They take turns to run the administration and do the same thing when they are in.
Quick response, Irfa Jan. You have 2 minutes and I run out of time after that. Please go
ahead. Thank you. Kashmiri Pandit exodus took place in 1989. In fact, the Kashmiri Pandits themselves actually marked their exodus as January 1989. If anybody was to look for those dates on Google, you would know Jammu and Kashmir was under centre's rule. It was VP Singh in support with the BJP that was ruling Jammu and Kashmir directly. You can do whatever tamasha, sir, does not change the facts.
There, viewers, I leave it at this. Right after the break, viewers, we're coming right back to a very big story. Don't go away.